Alright, in problem number 25, we're asked to find dy dx of x squared times cosine y plus sine of 2y equals x times y. So as we can see, this function isn't solved for one variable in terms of another. So there's not an explicit relationship between x and y. What we have is an implicit relationship between x and y. So we're going to have to use implicit differentiation. So we're going to start out with this portion here, and we see that it's a product. So we're going to have to use the product rule to take the derivative of this portion. So we'll call that f, we'll call this g, and we're going to write down the product rule over here on the side for our reference. So it's g times f prime plus f times g prime. Okay, so we're going to write down g, which is cosine y, times the derivative of x squared, which is 2x, plus f, which is x squared, times the derivative of cosine y. So in order to take the derivative of cosine y, we're actually going to have to use the chain rule, because we're treating y like a function. It's our implicit variable. So f times g prime. So we have negative sine y times dy dx plus, and we're going to have to use the chain rule again here, cosine 2y times 2, because we're taking the derivative of 2y now, dy dx equals x times y, which is another product. F, we'll call that g. So it's going to be y times 1 plus x times dy dx. Now, just to clean this up a little bit, we'll have 2x cosine y minus x squared sine y dy dx plus 2 cosine 2y dy dx equals y plus x dy dx. Alright, now we need to isolate all of our dy dx terms on one side. So I'm going to move them over to the left side, and anything that doesn't have a dy dx I'm going to move over to the right side. So let's subtract both sides by x dy dx, and we'll subtract both sides by 2x cosine y. So I'm going to rearrange the terms as I rewrite this. I'm going to have 2 cosine 2y dy dx minus x squared sine y dy dx minus x dy dx equals y minus 2x cosine y. And now that we have a common factor of dy dx on the left-hand side, we can go ahead and factor it out. So we have dy dx times 2 cosine 2y minus x squared sine y minus x equals y minus 2x cosine y. And now all we need to do to solve this is divide both sides by this quantity here, and that gives us dy dx equals y minus 2x cosine y divided by 2 cosine 2y minus x squared sine y minus x. And that's our final answer.